NBA today with the W resuming tomorrow. Two of the biggest stories of the second half will be Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, who are both making rookie history. Caitlin is on pace to set the rookie assist mark, which would pass Tisha Penicheiro in 1998. And Angel has a lead for the best rebounding season by a rookie, slightly ahead of Tina Charles's 2010 mark. So we're going to welcome back in the great Kendrick Perkins for a little WNBA talk. What you got, Big Perk?
Oh, it's not what I got. See, look, Andre, let me tell you how this goes sometimes. I know I'm the analyst in the basketball space, but sometimes I become the producer, and sometimes at points I take over and be the host. So now I got a few questions for you, right?
Okay,
when it comes down to Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, two all-stars, rookies who've been doing their thing, I need to know from an expert like yourself, what are your expectations for the both of them for the rest of the season?
Bonner gets denied by Boston. Wheeler finds Clark from the logo.
Caitlin Clark. Just hearing her name sends shockwaves through the basketball world. She's not merely a player, she's a phenomenon, a force of nature, shaking the very foundations of women's basketball and threatening to bring down the old guard with her meteoric rise. In just a few short months, Caitlin Clark has gone from a promising rookie to the face of the WNBA, and in doing so, she has ignited a firestorm of controversy, envy, and bitter rivalry that threatens to consume the league from the inside out. But what is it about Caitlin Clark that has turned her into such a polarizing figure? Why is it that, in a sport that desperately needs new heroes, Caitlin is met with hostility from her peers, a cold shoulder from the establishment, and even an inexplicable exclusion from the Olympic team? The answers to these questions lie deep within the tangled web of politics, ego, and fear that currently grips the WNBA, a league on the brink of either revolution or collapse. To understand the magnitude of the situation, we need to start at the beginning, where Caitlin's journey from a small town in Iowa to the bright lights of the WNBA began. From a young age, Caitlin was different. While other kids were dabbling in various sports, she was mastering them. Volleyball, softball, tennis, soccer, golf, Caitlin excelled at them all. But it was basketball that captured her heart, and it was basketball that would eventually make her a household name. Even in high school, it was clear that Caitlin Clark was special. Her skills on the court were unlike anything anyone had seen before, a unique blend of Kyrie Irving's handles and Steph Curry's deep shooting range, all wrapped up in a player who commanded the floor like a seasoned veteran. The internet couldn't get enough of her highlights, and soon she was an internet sensation with millions of fans and followers eagerly awaiting her next move. By the time she reached college, Caitlin was already a legend in the making. Her performances were nothing short of spectacular, and she quickly became the most talked about player in women's basketball. But with fame came scrutiny, and with scrutiny came envy. Caitlin Clark was no longer just a talented young player, she was a target. And the attacks, both on and off the court, began to intensify. The first sign that Caitlin's rise would not be welcomed by everyone came during her college career. As she shattered records and dominated the court, whispers began to circulate. Some said she was too flashy, that she was trying too hard to be like the male players she was often compared to. Others claimed that her success was due to her race or her looks rather than her talent. It was a narrative that would follow her into the WNBA, where it would take on a much more sinister tone. When Caitlin was finally drafted into the WNBA, it was supposed to be a moment of triumph, a culmination of years of hard work and dedication. But instead of being celebrated, Caitlin was met with a wave of resistance. The league, which had struggled for years to attract attention and grow its fan base, suddenly found itself in the spotlight, thanks in large part to Caitlin Clark. But instead of embracing this new era, the WNBA seemed almost reluctant to acknowledge the impact she was having. From the very beginning, Caitlin's introduction to the WNBA was anything but smooth. On the court, she faced an unprecedented level of physicality, with opponents going out of their way to challenge her, to knock her down, to send a message that she wasn't welcome. Off the court, the narrative was equally brutal. Critics and even some players within the league began to suggest that Caitlin's success was a product of her privilege, that if she weren't white, if she weren't conventionally attractive, she wouldn't be receiving the same level of attention. These accusations were not just baseless, they were dangerous. They threatened to undermine everything Caitlin had worked for, to reduce her incredible talent and hard-earned success to nothing more than a side effect of her appearance. And worse, they revealed a deep-seated resentment within the league, a fear among some of the more established players that Caitlin was here to take their place, to steal their spotlight, and to rewrite the history books in her own name. But if the WNBA was hoping that these attacks would slow Caitlin down, they were sorely mistaken. Instead of retreating, Caitlin doubled down, using the negativity as fuel to drive her performances to even greater heights. Game after game, she continued to dominate, setting records and leading her team to victory, all while carrying the weight of the league's expectations and its jealousy on her shoulders. And then came the Olympic snub, a decision so shocking, so utterly incomprehensible that it sent ripples of disbelief throughout the sports world. How could it be that Caitlin Clark, the most electrifying player in women's basketball, was left off the roster for the upcoming Olympics? The reasons given were flimsy at best, claims that she lacked experience, that there were others who deserved the spot more. But everyone knew the truth. This wasn't about experience. This was about fear of what Caitlin represented, fear of the change she was bringing, and fear of being left behind in the wake of her meteoric rise. The decision to exclude Caitlin from the Olympic team wasn't just a mistake, it was a deliberate attempt to keep her from the global stage, to prevent her from showing the world what women's basketball could truly be with her at the helm. It was a move born out of desperation, a last-ditch effort by those who saw her as a threat to maintain their grip on the sport. But this decision has consequences that could very well lead to the downfall of the WNBA as we know it. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player, she's a phenomenon, a cultural icon in the making. By sidelining her, the WNBA isn't just cutting off its nose to spite its face, it's driving a wedge between itself and the very fans it so desperately needs to survive. Already, the cracks are beginning to show. Fans are outraged, and rightly so. They see through the thinly veiled excuses. They know that this isn't about merit, it's about politics. And they're not going to stand for it. The WNBA is at a crossroads, and the path it chooses now will determine its future, whether it will rise to new heights on the back of Caitlin Clark's success, or whether it will crumble under the weight of its own fear and jealousy. As for Caitlin, she's not going anywhere. She's proven time and time again that she has what it takes to not just survive, but thrive in the face of adversity. The harder they push her, the stronger she becomes. And while they may have succeeded in keeping her off the Olympic team, they can't keep her out of the spotlight forever. Her time will come, and when it does, it will be on her terms. But the question remains, how much longer will the WNBA continue to sabotage its own future? How much longer will it allow petty rivalries, outdated thinking, and fear of change to dictate its decisions? Caitlin Clark is the future of this sport, and the sooner the league realizes that, the better off it will be. If they don't, they risk not just losing Caitlin, but losing the very future of women's basketball itself. In the meantime, the world watches and waits as the tension continues to build. The WNBA has a choice to make, and it's a choice that will have far-reaching consequences, not just for Caitlin Clark, but for the entire sport. Will they embrace the change she represents, or will they continue to cling to a past that no longer serves them? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain, Caitlin Clark is here to stay, and she's not backing down. As the season progresses, all eyes are on Caitlin and the WNBA. Every game she plays is a reminder of what could be a glimpse into a future where women's basketball is as celebrated and revered as its male counterpart. But for now, that future remains uncertain, clouded by the shadows of doubt, fear, and resistance. The WNBA stands on the precipice of a new era, but whether it will take the leap remains to be seen. The world of sports is no stranger to controversy, to drama, to the kind of rivalries that fuel endless debates and discussions. But what's happening with Caitlin Clark and the WNBA is something different, something more profound. It's not just about basketball, it's about the future of an entire league, about the fight for recognition, for respect, and for the right to change the game. Caitlin Clark has the power to be that change, but only if the WNBA lets her. And if they don't, the consequences will be felt for years to come, long after the current generation of players has hung up their jerseys. The WNBA has the chance to make history, to rewrite the narrative, and to usher in a new era of women's basketball. But they can't do it without Caitlin Clark. They need her, and deep down, they know it. The only question is whether they're willing to admit it before it's too late. As Caitlin continues to push the boundaries of what's possible on the court, the pressure on the WNBA mounts. Every decision they make, every move they take, is scrutinized by a growing legion of fans and critics who see Caitlin as the beacon of hope for the future of the sport. But for every step forward, there seems to be a step back, a reluctance to fully embrace the potential that Caitlin brings, a hesitancy to give her the platform she so clearly deserves. The exclusion from the Olympic team was just the latest in a series of missteps by the WNBA, a decision that has left many questioning whether the league truly understands the opportunity it has in Caitlin Clark. The reaction from fans has been swift and brutal, with social media ablaze with criticism, disbelief, and anger. They see this as more than just a snub, it's a betrayal, a slap in the face to everyone who believes in the future of women's basketball. But for Caitlin, this is just another obstacle to overcome, another challenge to rise above. She has faced adversity before, and she has always come out stronger on the other side. The more they try to hold her back, the more determined she becomes to prove them wrong. And with every game, she does just that, silencing her critics with her performances, winning over doubters with her skill, and inspiring a new generation of players who see in her the future of the sport. The WNBA's failure to recognize this, to see Caitlin for what she truly is not just a missed opportunity, it's a catastrophic blunder that could have long-lasting repercussions for the league. Caitlin Clark isn't just the future of women's basketball, she's the future of the WNBA itself. And if they don't realize that soon, they may find themselves left behind as Caitlin forges a path to greatness with or without their support. The stakes couldn't be higher. The WNBA is at a tipping point, and the decisions they make now will shape the future of the sport for generations to come. Will they embrace the change that Caitlin Clark represents, or will they continue to resist, to push back against the inevitable? Until it's too late. The world is watching, and the clock is ticking. Caitlin Clark has already proven that she has what it takes to be the face of women's basketball. Now it's up to the WNBA to decide whether they will stand with her or against her. The choice is theirs, but the consequences will be felt by everyone who loves the game. In the end, this isn't just about Caitlin Clark, it's about the future of the WNBA, the future of women's sports, and the future of a generation of young players who look up to her as a role model, a hero, and a symbol of what's possible. The WNBA has the power to make history, to change the game forever. But they can't do it alone. They need Caitlin Clark, and they need her now more than ever. As the tension continues to build, as the drama unfolds, one thing is clear: Caitlin Clark is not going anywhere. She is here to stay, and she is ready to take the WNBA to new heights. The only question is whether the league is ready to go with her. The choice is clear, but the path forward is anything but certain. The future of women's basketball hangs in the balance, and the WNBA holds the key. But time is running out, and the world is watching. Will they rise to the occasion, or will they let fear, envy, and outdated thinking hold them back? The answer to that question will determine the fate of not just Caitlin Clark, but the entire sport. And in the end, that's what's at stake: the future of the game itself. So as we watch this story unfold, as we see Caitlin Clark continue to defy the odds, we must ask ourselves, what kind of league do we want the WNBA to be? One that embraces change, that welcomes new talent, that pushes the boundaries of what's possible. Or one that clings to the past, that resists the inevitable, that fears the future? The choice is theirs, but the consequences are ours. Caitlin Clark is the future, and the future is now. The WNBA must decide whether they will stand in her way or stand by her side. The clock is ticking, and the world is watching. The time for change is now, and Caitlin Clark is ready to lead the way. Will the WNBA follow, or will they be left behind?